And joining us now, Karen Strong, to talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. Karen, good morning.
Hi, how are you? Nice to be here.
Good to have you with us here. So when we take a look at Western culture, how do we balance that with, I guess, just the interaction that we have day in and day out? I mean, it's almost like we've become a giant Seinfeld parody where we're afraid to speak.
Well, what I think is going on here is there's an inability within the people who are behind this sort of Me Too movement to decide where do we want to live? Do we want to live in a modern society where people have sexual freedom and the kinds of sexual freedom that these people want, which is that women should be able to make their own sexual decisions without being judged, without being shamed for it, all of those things. Do we want to live there, or do we want to live in the Victorian era? And I think that this Me Too thing is sort of the meeting of these two conflicting ideals that, they want women to be as safe as they were in the Victorian era from unwanted male attention, from being hit on, from being sexualized, being looked at in a sexual manner. But they also want to wear whatever they want. They want to act however they want. They want to make whatever sexual decisions that they want. And they expect that they can do all of those things and never ever come to harm, never have to deal with anything that makes them feel creeped out or uncomfortable or upset or anything like that. And it's just not going to work. So.
Yeah, I don't know how you balance
highly sexualized.
I don't know how you balance Me Too and Sex in the City.
Yeah, you really can't. The hypocrisy of Hollywood being where this all started, because Hollywood has taken the approach for decades and decades that sex sells, and look at the red carpet. One of the most amazing things, because one of these Me Tooers or Me Too supporters is Rose McGowan, and I was looking at a photo of her on the red carpet wearing something that looked like it had been made of dental floss, and you could see almost every inch of her skin between these little strings of dental floss that she was wearing, and she's posing sexually for the cameras. And then a few years later, she writes that the red carpet is like being eye raped, so you want to go out and look like that and be super sexy and, incredibly sexualized by yourself, but then you don't want anybody to notice that you're sexy? Like, I don't get where some of these feminists are coming from when it comes to, like sex sells, let's do that, and yet don't look at it and don't acknowledge that it's sexy, and for God's sake, don't comment on it. Because if you do that, you're in trouble as a man. So.
Well, then if advice to men, how do you deal with this in the world today? You're afraid to talk to women.
Yeah, there are increasing, and it's always been the case that men have had to be careful in the workplace, particularly in jobs like teaching and stuff like that. One of my uncles is a retired teacher, and he was asking me about what I do, and I said, well, I do men's issues stuff, and he said, oh, we don't have any issues. And I said, well, tell me, have you ever actually spent any time with any student of either sex alone in a room with a closed door? Did you ever do that in your entire career? And he said, well, no, of course not. I didn't want to be accused of something. I said, I don't think the female teachers had that problem. So, some of these things are not new. But when you look at now, we have feminists complaining that this is hurting young women's careers because their male mentors don't mentor them anymore, because it requires being alone with these women sometimes, and they're scared. These men are justifiably afraid of being accused of something, and and then they at the same time they criticize Mike Pence for never dining with a female colleague without his wife there, so that appearances are all above board. Right? They criticize him for that, but if he ever spent 5 minutes alone in a room with a female mentee, a female subordinate, he's extremely vulnerable if he does that. So, men are men are going to essentially divide themselves away from women. They're going to segregate themselves away from women, and it's going to end up hurting everybody.
Right. And, we go back to these conflicting messages, and then, Karen, on the other hand, you have Harvey Weinstein.
Well, I would have to agree Harvey Weinstein is a scumbag. That article that was written that kicked this whole thing off, that was, several months of investigation following a trail of closed settlements, sealed settlements, non-disclosure agreements that were often really, really, really intense, and payoffs. So when you're looking at somebody who is having to do that over and over and over again, pay a woman a couple $100,000, and tell her that, make her sign a piece of paper that says she can't even tell her spouse or her therapist about it. This is actually hiding something, that is it's not above board is what I'm going to say there. So, there are some serious issues within Hollywood and within any industry in terms of harassment and stuff like that. But this Me Too thing there was a British politician who was just lambasted because when a female journalist was interviewing him, and she was telling the story saying, this is getting ridiculous. Here I am sitting interviewing this British politician. He keeps touching my knee. I tell him if he doesn't stop, I'll punch him in the face. He stops, apologizes, and it was fine, right? Like, can't these women just, say, yeah, please don't do that, right? That's not what I'm here for. And then she's saying it's getting ridiculous. And then because she told that story, say, everybody calm down, this is getting ridiculous, that guy came under fire. And, it's just getting absolutely obnoxious.
Are we raising what's the impact this is having on a generation of men and women, for that matter, Karen, as we discuss here at KIDO Talk Radio, where it seems that women can say whatever they want to people, but men have to make sure their shirt's tucked in. It's almost as if we're empowering women at the expense of men. Please correct me if I misinterpret that.
Oh, I think we absolutely are, and it just all comes down to that sort of double standard when two young people, a man and a woman, they equally willingly drink, they equally willingly get drunk, they equally willingly agree to hook up. We automatically assume if she regrets it the next day that he raped her. And that is just the absolute double standard here. And right now in Canada, hopefully it won't come to the U.S., but right now in Canada, we've got bills. We had a bill pass that judges must undergo mandatory sex assault myth training, which, and I've looked at some of the stuff that they're going to be training these judges with, sort of had a backdoor look through some people I know. And basically what they're saying is they're saying anything a woman does before the sex act in question, afterwards, anything she does, it's going to be consistent, up to including lying on the stand and being caught lying on the stand. All of that is consistent with the behavior of a woman who was raped. So if she remembers everything perfectly, that's consistent with rape. If she gets all the details completely wrong, that's also consistent with rape. If she waits a year to report it, and then you discover that she pursued him romantically for a year and a half, and he politely rebuffed her advances, right? That's consistent with a woman who had been raped. So there's nothing a woman can do before, after, be caught doing, including telling her friends, can I say that? He pissed me off, and I'm going to get him. I'm going to get revenge. Even that is consistent with a woman who was actually raped. This is what they're going to be training judges with. And this is because we have this sexual landscape where there are no rules for women whatsoever. They end up sometimes getting hurt by their own decisions, and then they want to go through the judicial system or through an extrajudicial thing like Me Too and get their hurt, fixed or whatever, get justice in some way. When in so many cases it's often women's own decisions that are at fault, right? And they want to change the laws to make it so that there is, like Alan Dershowitz said, rape is such a heinous crime, not even innocence is a defense.
Indeed. Karen, if people want more information from you and the real truth, what can they do?
Oh, they can go look me up online, Karen Straughan, Straughan, or just Google Girl Writes What. It'll take you to my YouTube channel. It'll take you to some speeches that I've given at universities and stuff like that. And it'll take you to my blog, whose name I can't say on the air.
Fair enough, Karen.
It has a bad word.
We don't like the bad words. Thank you. Take care.
All right.
All right, we appreciate you. Is this true? I can't believe this. It's been 75 years since we've heard from this young man. I thought he might have moved away. Matt Otter joins us. A welcomed return, my prodigal son on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hey, good morning, K. Millie. How you doing, friend?
Where have you been, old friend?
Oh, just been working a lot, Kevin. You know, this economy's getting better, but I sure don't see it in my wallet yet.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. We've missed you.
Hey, I missed you guys, too. I keep listening to you, Kevin. It's not like I'm not listening.
Well, thank you. It's not the same without you. What can we do for you today?
Well, this whole Biden situation, my brother, he's a huge liberal, and he loves Joe Biden. And I keep telling him, Kevin, that he's the only one that could actually probably put up a fight in a campaign against Donald. I don't think he'd win, but, I think he would go down like Donald Trump said, though. I think in a fight, I think Donald Trump would shut Joe up, to be honest with you.
So, in other words, and by the way, for people just tuning in, we've been covering this story all morning long, but for the benefit of people just tuning in here at KIDO Talk Radio, Joe Biden really was sounding off at the mouth here. I have it for you. Let's listen at KIDO Talk Radio.
They asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Wow. That's very presidential.
Pay-per-view. This could be the new pay-per-view, Kevin. Put it up as not Mayweather Pacquiao, but put it up as Joe Biden versus the Donald.
What do you make of that? I mean, is that presidential?
No, not at all, Kevin. It's asinine. Sorry, Kevin, but it is. It's just retarded. Look, they're grown men with, they're not immature men, okay? They're grown men. They know what to do in this world. They know they have responsibilities to do. I mean, we're talking about a president. I mean, Ronald Reagan would never say he'd take someone behind a woodshed, Kevin. I mean, let's get real.
No, but I would agree with you on that.
But I think, I think the Donald's going to take 2020, and, I don't think Joe stands a chance, to be honest with you, but better than Hillary. Hillary was the worst candidate ever.
I see.
Thanks, Kevin. You have a great day. Appreciate you.
Don't be a stranger, Matt. I'll see you.
All right.
Our great friend, Matt Otter. By the way, Matt, God bless. Let's go to Harry in Caldwell with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Harry.
Morning, Kevin. I just wanted to make a quick comment on some of the, I don't remember what the lady's name that was just on was, but some of her perspective on men in the workplace and the situations with accusations of rape and stuff like that. I want to preface it, I'm extremely conservative, so generally speaking, I take a very conservative perspective, but this is a situation where my understanding of it has changed over the years. I used to really see things from the perspective she was expressing, but I really think that's a false narrative. And, what she was saying about this situation being so one-sided where men have to, live in fear and this kind of thing, and that, if there's a consensual sexual situation that men can be accused of rape anytime, that I really think that's a false narrative, and I'll tell you why. If you really look into that situation, there are rape kits all over this country. I mean, thousands of rape kits. They don't have funding to go and check the DNA in all of them. And if you look at the specific situations of individual women that have been raped, there's a huge percentage of them that don't even report it because they don't want the shame. And unless it's an extremely violent rape, a lot of times the courts will decide in favor of it being, either consensual or there's nothing that they can prove. So I think what she's doing is a good example of how politics tends to polarize things, and we go to one extreme or the other. But let's face it, women don't have the best track record either, and that's something that can be cited historically. I'm not saying that things shouldn't be the way they are, but I'm a teacher. I work full-time as a teacher, and I don't live in fear. I just use common sense. I make sure that everything's above board in everything I do, and you just have to be cautious that way, and I think that's a good caution. I mean, one of the things that changed my perspective was having a couple daughters, and it does change your perspective when you start thinking about the prospects in our culture that objectifies women to the extent it does. There's two sides to that story, and yeah, I think she was kind of really polarizing the issue. It's not quite what she was saying.
Harry, appreciate your call. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Harry and Caldwell. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. We're joined by Liberal Steve. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Has Joe Biden driven his brain off the deep end of life? Making a statement like that in a high school while talking to kids?
Well, he's a tough guy.
Take somebody... Huh? I know. What is with him? It's just so stupid to talk. While he's 79, once they get past that 76, 78, the brain cells just aren't firing anymore. And then the President of the United States even responding to it, that made it just as bad, I thought. Come on, these people got to get out of politics. You talk about Tommy Berquist. Is it Berquist? Running for governor here?
Tommy Ahlquist.
Ahlquist. Where'd they come up with Berquist?
I don't know what you've been smoking this morning.
Well, oh, golly, Kevin, you're so funny. But anyway, they got to stop this. These like Ahlquist is saying, get these lifetime politicians, the lieutenant governor and the congressman, and get them out. Drain the swamp. Get some new blood in.
But a lot of people say that about the callers on this show.
Oh, yeah, a lot of people say a lot. You never take a poll. You never write anything down. So how would you know what people are saying, Miller? You just throw this stuff out there.
I take a poll all the time at KIDOTalkRadio.com. I just wrote an article on the teacher being investigated by the Attorney General. I'm required to publish daily. What about you, sir?
And I didn't go along with your lady calling in on the Me Too that's got her own website and everything. Come on. There's so many women in the workplace. We're talking about the workplace mainly that are used and abused by men.
I think I would disagree with you. And I would believe, I do believe we're raising a generation of men that are going to be afraid of their own shadows.
What? Well, yeah, maybe on the East Coast.
KIDO Talk Radio, 828, traffic and weather to get. Mike Miniger's Auto Body. Maybe he's calling us from Costa Rica. Good morning, sir.
No. The big GC, Garden City. Yep.
Well, I'm glad you're actually working, contributing to the tax schedule today as opposed to sloughing off.
Oh, man. I'm not liberal, Steve, dude. You don't need to be up on me. I'm one of your own.
Unfortunately, that's how I show my affection. Duly noted.
Duly noted. I'm glad I didn't stick around. I actually was in Downey, California last weekend, and but I've been waiting for you to come by the shop. But apparently I haven't been a priority, which is okay.
No, I just don't know when you're in town.
You want me to drop you a note? What do you got?
Yeah, let me know let me know your schedule, and I'll swing in.
So Plugs Biden, Dennis Miller nicknamed him Plugs because of that great hairdo where you got, 6 swatches of hair out there in the front. I went and saw Dennis Miller and Bill O'Reilly, and I think I called you after that in December, and Miller still calls him Plugs. I love that. But now that he's a boxer, I mean, plugs even fits better, right? It's kind of pugilistic, isn't it?
Pugilistic. Wow, that's a big word for us.
It is. I'm sorry. I actually did go to high school. And I was a pugilist out on the playground after school.
I could see that.
They actually, instead of pugilist, they called me Pugs. Pudge. Pudgy. I think that was the term.
Well, it's better than fatty.
Yeah. Oh, they don't call you that.
Oh, yeah, they do. You know, when I walk in a restaurant, they go, "Hey, fatty, over here."
Yeah, I just don't see that, but, you know.
Well, it's the svelte clothes I wear.
So do we really, I mean, is there hope that Biden runs? I mean, is that something that could actually happen, seriously, at 79?
I think he's going to run.
That would be just pathetic.
I would find it refreshing. I'm so tired of the young people taking over. Let's go old. Old is good again, hip again. I like that.
Well, you know, as a guy of 65 years of age, but I will tell you this. I don't think as well as I did when I was 40. But, you know, that I wasn't a Rhodes Scholar either. So, but I guess if you do it all the time, it's part of what you've done your whole life, then you probably age a little better. But I don't know. 79 just seems like an awful stretch for a 4-year term. But I could be wrong. I'd like to see Hillary run again, quite honestly. I think that would be hilarious, don't you?
Well, it's almost like you're having a conversation with yourself.
Okay, you go ahead. You ask the question. I called into your show, and I'm the expert. So.
I've got nothing else. That's all I've got today. The line of the day is, "I'm not liberal, Steve. I'm one of your own."
You got off that call with LS, and the next thing I know, I'm being pugilized.
Well, that's what happens when you leave me. You know, you go on vacation, we get a little sensitive.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll let you go to the next brain surgeon, because this one, he's done all surgery he can do.
Well, thank you, Mike Miniger. Don't be a stranger. I'll see you soon.
Oh, listen to you. Okay. I'll be back.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Our great friend Mike Miniger coming up. What more about the Me Too harassment movement would we like to talk about? Doug and Mountain Home, Tea Party Bob, and Arvell and Fruitland. And why doesn't the Secret Service go visit Joe Biden? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
They asked me, would I like to debate this gentleman? And I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Gotta love Joe Biden. Doug in Mountain Home, good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin. Yeah, that woman you had on about what's going on with the women and men in this country, you know, I'm almost 62. I've seen it. I enacted that stuff clear back in the 70s. One of my teachers in grade school got accused of who knows what, touching a couple girls, and he went to prison, Kevin, for 10 years. His wife died. Both girls that they had, daughters they adopted, were taken away. And 10 years, girls, somebody hurt them. I don't know if it was their parents or whatever. They actually come out and said that he had never touched them, never done nothing. They sent him to prison for 10 years, Kevin. I mean, over a girl's say-so. I'm not good with words. You know, and what we see going on with Hollywood, I'm all for letting California freaking drop off into Mexico and build the freaking fence around them. Let them go.
Doug, great call. Thank you for that. Jared Halpern joins us now from Capitol Hill exclusively on KIDO Talk Radio. Your home for Fox News on the radio here in the Treasure Valley. Jared, good morning.
How are you?
Good to have you with us. So the government shutdown, it's almost like a page out of that old daytime soap opera, As the World Turns.
I mean, we'll see if there's that much drama. That's a soap opera with drama, right? I don't know. I work during the day.
Sure.
But, you know, listen, this is, it is very familiar, the complaints here, right? This bill, this government funding bill, it's called an omnibus. It's basically all of the appropriations bills rolled up into one big bill, and then there's some other stuff that's usually attached to it. This was released at about 8 o'clock last night, 2,200 pages. That's a lot. And they're having the first procedural vote in the House of Representatives on this in about 4.5 minutes. That's the complaint that you're hearing across both aisles, right, is that why are we voting on a $1.3 trillion spending bill, 15 hours after it was finalized?
Indeed. Of course, some people aren't happy, but Paul Ryan coming out and speaking out about this.
Well, listen, I mean, this was negotiated for weeks, and that's the point, and I think to be fair, it's a valid point from leadership, is that the broad strokes of this bill are not unknown. They have been negotiated for months, for weeks at the leadership level. Paul Ryan, Republicans, able to secure a big funding increase for the Pentagon, the biggest single-year boost in like 15 years. Democrats were able to secure a lot of the domestic side spending increases that they had been looking for, even unable to get during the Obama years. Because remember, the precursor to this spending bill was that budget that was passed several weeks ago, that 2-year budget agreement that busted sequestration. That had been a long goal of both Republicans and Democrats to get rid of sequestration, raise those spending caps. So they were able to do that. The outcome of that is a $1.3 trillion spending bill that's able to spend a lot more on defense, a lot more on domestic programs, and that's what this bill does.
Right. Of course, defense is very crucial and close to the president's heart, as do a lot of people.
Right. And so that's what you're going to hear the president talk about. Now, there is some money. Whether you call it the border wall or not, I suppose, is open for interpretation. There's more than $1 billion allocated for construction of physical barriers along the southern border. So that's something that the president is saying, listen, we were able to get some of that money for it. Republican leaders are saying we were able to get some of that money for it. Now, a lot of conservatives say this isn't what the president ran on. This is not the $25 billion for the wall. This is not fully authorizing a multi-year construction project, anything like that, which is what they had been eyeing. On the other hand, it also doesn't include any of those DACA protections that Democrats had wanted. So that dispute over a long-term solution to these young immigrants brought to the country illegally as children is not included in this. And because of that, you're not going to see a lot of that border wall money, because that's always sort of been seen as the trade-off, right? Now, Democrats say they made an offer to the president that he rejected. President Trump has said it's Democrats who have rejected every offer. The bottom line is that issue is not resolved in this spending bill and will continue to be an issue moving forward, probably in an awful lot of pieces of legislation that move between now and the midterm elections.
Well, as they say, days of our lives as the world turns. You'll be on it, Jared. Thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care. Our great friend, Jared Halpern. Let's continue on. Publisher of the Gem State Patriot, Tea Party Bob. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today? You're on one of my hot topics this morning. I see everybody is up in arms about the Medicaid bill being shot down. You know, there is no conservative approach to Medicaid, as we should have not ever implemented in the first place. Since Lyndon Johnson burdened us with this Great Society program, we spent trillions of dollars since the 1960s and accomplished nothing but raising the national debt. Some 19 million people enrolled in Medicaid when it was first in effect in 66. And as of last year, 58 million people were on Medicaid, which should tell you the system's not working and that the way we deliver and deal with health care is broken. In Idaho alone, we get $2 billion in federal money from Medicaid, and Idaho contributes $500 million to that. What would happen if the U.S. government decided to cut the amount they pay the state from 70 to, say, 40%? That would have to be made up by Idahoans by raising their taxes.
Is that your response? Is that your response to Christian and Weezer that called in and said they're not listening, or to Christy Perry saying she's been virtually spit on by people, very emotional, as you've heard during this program? Hold on. Would you let me finish, please?
Sure.
I know you're fired up, and I'll believe me, there'll be plenty of time. but I'm just framing this for people that are just tuning in at KIDO Talk Radio. So is that your response to them?
It is my response. It's my response to pro-life. It's my response to Jim, and you'll hear about the rest of this. I've got just a little more to talk about here. But you cannot finance a socialized problem like this. It costs too much, and the U.S. government can't even fund it. We know we're going to be broke if we keep doing this. Think about this. We have over 400 retired doctors in Idaho who have retired because they cannot afford to carry their required malpractice insurance in the private practice. So if they want to work, they must work for the big hospitals who pick up their insurance. These are the same doctors who used to service the Medicaid population, but had their payments for services cut to the bone, causing them to lose money each and every year they were in business. Fixing the healthcare problem is not going to happen until we get rid of the third-party payment system and we have more transparency and cost for procedures. The one way we could bring down medical costs is by bringing integrative medicine, which is now being required in hospitals.
Well, you had a lot of people shooting that down earlier. As you know, when pro-life said all you have to do is eat right.
I mean, look, integrative medicine is not just eating right. It's a way of dealing with medical problems that is much different because you're using allopathic and natural means. People like Pro-Life and Jim from Star are both right in what they've said this morning. People need to be more proactive in taking care of themselves by eating healthier and exercising. However, like Jim, we must have a way to protect those who have serious medical problems so that they are not bankrupted by a system when they do get sick. As we know, we are on the verge of opening our first free integrative health and wellness research project here in Idaho. And hopefully it's going to give us some insights into how we can better educate those who are not able to afford health care and to change their lifestyles to be healthier. But it also, we're going to provide voluntary alternative and complementary practitioners to help those who do have problems and can't get insurance and have medical problems. Americans are some of the unhealthiest people in the world.
All right.
In fact, we rank 10th in the wealthiest countries in the world.
To be continued.
You know, look, the answer is not socialized medicine because it doesn't work. It's educating people on how to stay healthy and keep healthy.
Our man, Tea Party Bob. Thank you, sir. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Kevin.
All right. Fired up as always. That's the way we like it here. 580-5436. 580-KIDO. Trump versus Biden. Arvell and Fruitland. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. I'd like to comment on the Biden-Trump exchange. Liberal Steve, I think, has it right when it comes to Trump, that his response wasn't that much better than Biden's because it only escalates the animosity between the two.
But you know, Arvell, not everybody is as well thought of as you. And you know Trump, you go after him no matter who you are, he's going to come back.
Yeah. Well, it's like two kids in the playground, one saying, well, I'm going to beat the tar out of you, and the other one says, no, I'm going to knock your teeth in, and it goes back and forth. It's just so immature. And I get really tired of Trump name-calling and making these responses in retort to what he's been called. I mean, no, I agree that it's wrong that he's called these things, but he needs to just be quiet and just go on and ignore it, and it'll go away.
That's what you'd tell him to his face.
No, thanks.
Arvell, thank you for the call.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye-bye. More of your calls coming up next, 580-5436, 580-KIDO.
They asked me would I like to debate this gentleman. And I said no. I said if we were in high school, I'd take him behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
Biden the bully. Next with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Dwight in Boise. Good morning. You're on with Kevin Miller.
Good morning, Kevin. Kevin, I got a dilemma right now. I got so many things I want to talk about. Pro-life is correct. We're better off without health insurance because health insurance, except for one caveat, for emergency trauma care. After that, taking pharmaceutical drugs is always harmful. it always does more damage than it does good. The good that it does is an illusion, and it disappears fairly rapidly, but people don't follow up. The other thing I want to say regarding Joe Biden is mentally ill. That's one thing. And the other thing is Joe Biden is guilty of setting it up where his son has gotten this business deal from the Red Chinese. This is all over Breitbart and some other websites. This business deal that's in the neighborhood of $1 billion. And Biden isn't the only one. And I want to ask you, Kevin, to please talk about this tomorrow. It's Biden, it's John F. Kerry and his kid or one of his kids, and it's also Mitch McConnell and his wife. All three of these people, and probably a lot more, have business deals with the Red Chinese. The Red Chinese are bribing our politicians, our public officials. This was when Kerry was the Secretary of State. All of these people need to be under indictment for treason, in my opinion. And I forget the other point that I wanted to make. I hope you'll talk about this, Kevin. Oh, there's one other thing I want to ask you, Kevin. Would you consider putting out the word, an invitation to public officials, you know, the ones that are good and faithful and honorable public servants? What I want to know is if there's so many good and honorable public servants working for the federal government, where are the whistleblowers? There needs to be whistleblowers. There are sins of commission, what we do, and then there's sins of omission, what we fail to do. And I believe that there's lots of people that know things in the federal government. They're not guilty of doing the crime, but they know about the crime.
Well, you know what they say, Dwight, silence is consent. Let's go to Craig in Caldwell at KIDO Talk Radio. Hello, Craig.
Hello there. I just wanted to say something. There was a gentleman earlier talked about he was tired of the playground banter. Well, he's doing the same thing essentially, only he's doing it to a different degree, and he's maybe not using, he's using different language. We're always going to have conflict and disagreements, and if people can't deal with that, you might as well just check out now, because that's human nature, regardless of the degree of the conflict and the degree of, you know, the nature of the actual discussion itself. There's always going to be conflict. I mean, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, life is about conflict. That's the problem that the millennials have. They want to compromise or coexist, and it is about conflict. And, you know, we have these big marches coming up, and we're all going to sing Kumbaya, but there are still bad people that want to harm us, and if we don't stand up to them, then we'll be victims.
Well, when did they discover this? This was like the concept of is a dangerous thing, because I mean, if you're an adult, you realize that all these kids are basically like, we want peace all the time. Well, it's called You're Dead. That's peace all the time. So I don't give them much credit for doing what they're doing. I think they're naive, and I think they're sophomoric, to go back to a school term. Anyway, thanks for your time.
Thank you. All right, traffic and Kevin Miller here in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. So appreciate you listening, and like Dwight said, we'll take a look at this issue. But back to Joe Biden. You know, the Democratic Party has changed from, you know, good old Joe. Imagine if Donald Trump had said, I'll take him out in the parking lot, instead of I'd wipe the floor up with him responding to it. That's the hypocrisy that we work so hard to try and expose, whether locally or statewide or nationally, right? That's really what it comes down to. So we so appreciate you listening. Tell a friend. This show in itself is a small business. We must continue to grow the audience if we want this voice, your voice, to continue. Ray Amaya, outstanding job as always. Appreciate it. Coming up next week, it's the return of Thank You Thursdays, and we'll be on the road throughout the Treasure Valley. Looking forward to meeting and seeing you and catching up on things. Good day. God bless. Keep the faith.